Hello guys and welcome to this new video. So today we will watch the 6th round of the Russian Chess Championship Superfinal, and the feature game today is Dubov against Jakovenko, which is going to be a good game. I don't want to spoil the result, so I won't say much for the moment. So let's go through the game. D4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, b6, g3, and bishop a6. So this is the Queen's Indian defense. Yeah, so it's we call it in French the West Indian, and it's the Queen's Indian in English. Don't know how it is in your language. So white goes queen c2, c5, bishop g2, taking the opportunity to take control of the long diagonal. This is all theoretical for the moment. Knight c6, pawn takes c5, pawn takes c5, castle, and bishop e7. Here, Dubov played e4. I think I had just a couple games in my database after this move, and it was not high-rated players. So yeah, I have the 2014 mega database. Maybe I'm missing some 2015 games, but this is not the usual move. The usual move is rook d1. There was a lot of game played for decades already. Just inputted some classical move: bishop f4, queen b6, b3, and d5. So we'll stop here. It's just to show you that usually black is trying to play d5 in those variations of the Queen's Indian, and it arises totally different pawn structures. That's what we'll see in the game. So let's go back to the game because that's what really interests us. So white plays e4, and you can immediately understand that the classical plan to play d5 is totally changed. Here black went rook c8. In fact, white wants to play e5 next. The only way to really avoid this move is to play d6, but it's just met by e5, opening the long diagonal. By example, knight d7 might be played. Sorry, if you take with the pawn, I think that white, let me just check out, but white, yeah, can just play, I forgot that, sometimes I forget my analysis, can just play queen a4 and knight takes c5 after bishop b7, knight takes c5, and white is winning your material. So sorry for this little understanding. Yeah, I forgot to input the line. So e5, you cannot take with the pawn, you go knight d7, pawn takes d6, bishop takes d6, and rook d1. And here, well, white has two bad pawns, as I underlined. The pawn a7 and c5 are, well, isolated, so they will be attacked, both of them. And there are always it's full of traffic on the d file, and the rook is perfectly placed already, and white will very quickly jump with its pieces in the center and has an advantage. So it's not really possible to stop e5. Jakovenko decided to go rook c8. Maybe he could have gone castle, but those are possibilities. So now we play e5, knight g4, queen e4, taking control of the center. It pretty much forces the move f5. It's the only decent move to protect this knight. So white rips the knight off, knight takes f6, queen e2. I will go a couple of moves further and we'll stop again. So queen e2, having a knight on e6 will explain you why it's so important. Castle, knight b d2. And let's stop here. So it's not a usual position because you see it's the center. Sorry, the center is not occupied by any pawn here, and it's wide open. As you see, we already have a bishop on the long diagonal, and white is preparing b3 to protect the pawn and bishop b2 because it's the best place for the bishop. As there are no pawns and no traffic in the center, it's really great to have bishop in fianchettos. Black, on the other way, can't play d5. Let's advance a bit to play bishop b7, but then we just lose the errors, so I can explain it better. So black would maybe love to play the pawn to d5, but the thing is that the pawn on e6 is really hard to protect in order to play the move d5. You never have time to do that, unfortunately. So when I watched the game, I couldn't really understand who is better here, and the computer said it's equal, but somehow I think it was a preparation of Dubov, and it seems pretty convincing. I mean, look how it happens, like b3, a5, and bishop b2, and it seems pretty convincing to me to see this bishop on the long diagonal looking at the king, and those two pawns pretty much stuck on d7 and e6, really hard to push them. So the more I think, the more I prefer the white side here, though it's not a big advantage. So as you saw, black went pawn to a5. Well, expanding the queen side, maybe you want to create some weaknesses over there and exchange this isolated pawn against a better pawn, that is the a2 pawn. So it's a logical move, and here Jakovenko is going to play a ready style plan. So he starts with queen b6, adding up pressure on the queen side. White goes rook b1. Black goes queen a4. If you go queen a4, queen a7. If you go here a4, white can take pawn takes, queen a7, and by example rook e1. And the thing is that you cannot retake the pawn that easily, because when you take the pawn, the bishop rips the knights off the board, bishop takes back, and rook takes b7. As you see, this bishop is left without any protection. So it's not that easy to retake the a4 pawn because of this rook b1 move. Again, a lot of traffic on this file. It seems the rook is never going to be used, but suddenly you play f4, everything disappears and the bishop is taken. So black continues his plan, ready style idea, queen a7, look at that, queen b6, queen a7, and the next one is queen a8, using the long diagonal. As I said, the center is absolutely free, so players try to take advantage of the diagonals. So queen a7, pawn to a3. The things that in love variation, you might want to play knight b4. Also, sometimes maybe you want to play b4 when the black side plays a4. Maybe you wanna answer with b4. So it's a prophylactic move. So queen a8. So taking the long diagonal, rook e1. So as we saw, we really need to get the rooks in front of those pawns, semi-open files. Pawn to a4, expanding. Pawn takes a4, so we have no time to play the b4 move. Knight d4. So this is a pretty much deciding moment where it's a long variation where most of the moves will be forced. Queen d3. So attacking the knight. So black decides to trade everything on f3. Yeah, so we trade everything on f3. So we exchanged some minor pieces here, which are the light square bishop, which been exchanged. And it means that the pawn structure now on the king side is not ideal, because if you have your pawn in front of the king on the dark square, you want to have the light square bishop. In fact, it would be better to have a pawn on h3 here for white, as we have the dark square bishop. Anyway, so far it's no big deal because black doesn't have a light square bishop and it's still very far from attacking the king. So it's a weakness that might be a problem a bit later in the game, but for the moment we cannot see clearly why it should be that bad. So black goes to retake the pawn. White goes rook d1, as rook is not doing anything here anymore. So we go to watch the pawn. Queen c6, bringing back the queen, logical. And white goes here knight g5. And this is a move I love. I just love this move because the only way to protect your pawn on h7 here is to play the move g6. And when you play g6, which is the move that was played in the game, it's exactly the same. It's a problem because the bishop on b2 is just going to shine on this long diagonal. You would definitely need this bishop on g7, but it will be impossible to bring it there. And the thing is that you can't. There is just not a single move that can avoid bishop f6, queen h7, if not this g6 move. If you play h6 to protect your pawn, it's made by bishop takes, and queen h7 checkmate. So you can't protect that this way. And in fact, when we when we were in this position, it was really hard to stop knight g5 and getting problem on the king side. So that's why I said it's pretty much forced. It's a long variation. It's an interesting setup that forced black to create weaknesses around the king. Now white plays h4. Always a good move because you could watch, by example, the game between Shirov and Bareyev on my channels that I did last week. Exactly the same idea. You bring a pawn to attack. A pawn is a piece, and this is a piece that is coming to attack our opponent. So if black would play knight g4 here, so the move was rook cd8. But if you go knight g4, which might look inviting because you might want to get some pressure on the white king, white just answers by knight e4. And now we are threatening the pawn on d7, we control the f6 square, and we protect the f2 pawn. It's a perfect cover. So black went just rook cd8, queen c3, so now the knight is pinned, rook b8. So you see black has a problem finding a plan. Bishop a1, we hide the bishop. Then we free the queen, if we want to move. Queen b7. He tries to enter to b3, and white here plays simply rook d3. So no entry square for the queen, everything is covered. So it means if the queen has no entry, there is no counterplay on the queen side. Also, the rook on d3 is just perfect because it's coming to f3, might come to f3, add up some pressure on the f file and protects a bit the diagonal and the f2 pawn. So rook d3 a good move. Black plays h6. It's another weakness coming, as now no more protection. Rook f3, adding up pressure. Pawn g5 and pawn takes g5. And you see this h2 move, this h2 pawn again come to the attack, threat the knight, and if the knight moves away, it's simply checkmate. On h8, the queen is protected by the bishop and the king is surrounded. So black cannot save the day. It goes bishop d8. It's a prophylactic move because anyway on the next move we take the pawn, and it goes king f7. It's an interesting idea to defend yourself. It's to use the f6 pawn as a shield. It's a shield because white is attacking on the dark squares, and now we cannot pass the queen or we cannot pass the bishop because this pawn is annoying. In fact, we would need to come to the h file, but when we bring the king on g2, we face immediately a pin. Also, black is very quick. He's a move away from playing rook h8. Obviously, the rook is not doing anything on f8 anymore. So white goes rook d1. Adds pressure on the d7 pawn. It's a weakness, so the queen is committed to this. Also now if the rook lands on the 7 rank, then the pawn pushes and then it's game over. The king is a blocker here. It cannot move away. So rook h8, pinning the rook. As you see, combination of the rook and the queen as in the game between Svidler and Hizmatulin. White plays queen d3, attacking the pawn. Pawn to d5, only way to save it. Bishop e5. So now the rook has to go on an awkward square. Rook c8. So now it's hitting its hot pawn. No more threats of, no more control of the first rank. Pawn takes, perfectly played. And here it's move 36 already. And Dubov misses an easy win. I mean, an easy simplification, because the game, this is already +3 for the computer for white. And you can simplify the game by take. And if king e6, so now we are 2 pawns up, and I think Dubov was scared of king e6, threatening 2 pieces, making a fork. But it was met by f7, rook f8, and bishop g7. And here white was winning, as if we take the pawn, we don't retake the rook immediately, but we go rook e5, king d6, and rook takes f7, winning the game. Well, you don't have to take the pawn, but if you don't take the pawn after bishop g7, the game is lost. So, understandably in Zeitnot, Dubov didn't see that. He goes rook f4. Jakovenko goes g5, attacking the rook. So you see, you will see he's a good defender. Rook g4, and now pawn to d4. The thing is that now the queen and the rook works again together to attack the h1 square, and also the rook now was carried away from f3, so we have to do something to protect ourselves. So we play queen c4 check, king g6, queen d3 check, king f7, king f7, and we reached the 40th move, the 40. So we have some more time, and here white goes rook e4. Rook e4, so he went rook e4, and this is a mistake. The best move was f3, and he didn't play f3 probably because he was afraid of this second rank attacks that might come with the queen. So I analyzed queen b2. It was met by queen c4 check. If king f8, we go bishop d6, queen e8, and queen e6, and it's a checkmate on the next move. So after queen c4, black has to go king g6, and it's met by the amazing move rook h4, stopping the connection between the queen and the rook. So this is what Dubov missed, but understandably. Pawn takes h4, queen e6. Now the blocker was carried away, and you cannot do anything about f7. Black continues the attack, pawn takes, so threatening some more checkmates. f7 check, king h7, queen f5 check, king h6. So we cannot take the rook because of queen h2, king f1, g2, king e2, and this is another queen coming. So we play f8 check. So we give up a queen, we give another check, and now we can proceed with bishop g3, and the king on h5 is so misplaced that white is winning. A way or another, you are going to get this rook with some multiple checks, and white has just decisive advantage. So this is the reason why Dubov didn't play f3 but went rook e4. I'm also saying that to you guys because sometimes you see the evaluation of the computer on your screen and you think like this guy blundered or this guy just gave the game away or something like that. I mean, this is not really the case. I mean, those moves are really insane and you cannot really find them. So I want to give a lot of credit to Jakovenko because he's in a really tough position and his opponent really has to find the good moves to win the game. So rook e4, bishop f6. Here, Dubov went bishop takes f6. Better was to go queen f3. There are two ways to really defend the bishop. So if rook h6, we go bishop f6, rook f6, and queen h5 check. And the queen is inside now. And no more problems with the h1 spot. So white is almost winning. Like you will bring those rook to e1 and everything is coming inside. And if rook c6, we go rook takes d4, pawn takes d4, and bishop f6. This was really hard to find again, and the thing is that the rook is pinned, this rook is attacked, and the king is wide open, and now everybody is coming into the house, destroying the king. So this is winning as well. Again, it's very hard to find. Bishop takes f6 played, king takes f6, queen f3 check, king g7, queen f5. So it looks good as well, but the thing is that you still have the same problem with this h1 square, which makes things not that as easy as it looks. Here, Jakovenko finds a very good defensive move, rook h5. So he's defending the h5 pawn, and he's threat rook h8. So it's a 2-in-1, and it's not that easy for white to win. In fact, the best move was here queen e5, king h7, and rook d e1 to enforce the e4 square and the e file, and to stop the rook from coming as the king is on the h file. And here again, white has to work a bit, but it's not that hard to win if you find this idea. So this is maybe the point where Dubov made a real mistake, because he went first rook d1, and now again a good defensive move, it's rook e8 coming. And the thing is that you don't have queen e5 anymore. This rook is pinned because of the checkmate, and now it's impossible to enter as all the entry squares are covered by black pieces. And this is already just equal now. So this is the turning point. An amazing defense, because all the black pieces are loose. I mean, look, the rook is loose, the rook is loose, and the queen, well, the queen is always loose, but I mean, the two rooks are loose on very weird spots, but somehow everything is coordinated because of this h1 square. So it's very beautiful, the black setup. White goes king g2, so it's spinning its rook even more. Pawn to d3, and now the final blunder, queen f3 was played. The only way to save the day was to go here f3, rook e4, pawn e4, and queen f7, with a hard endgame to defend. But I mean, black is psychologically a lot better here, because it defended an absolutely hopeless position, and it's very hard for white to defend this endgame. So I think that due to the dynamic of the game, black is much better here, even if objectively just slightly better. But white went queen f3. Now black goes d2, and look at that. We are threatening to make a queen by taking the pawn. Now if you go rook e8, I believe black goes... wait a second. I think black goes rook h2 check. Let me double check that one. Okay, no. So we could do it this way. So black takes and makes a knight. Sorry, I won't shed that. I have so you can make a knight. The rook takes on e1, has to take on e1 because it's a check, and then rook h2. Or you can go rook h2, king h2, queen takes f3, check, king g6, and king f6, attacking the rook. And when you go to win the queen, black is making another queen. The pawn takes c1, knight is much more easier. Rook takes back and rook h2, and we win the queen. Just have the automatic promotion. It's really rare that it's really rarely happen that you have to promote a knight on chess base. So that's why you cannot take on e8. So it goes queen c3 check, king g8, and here white resign. The thing is that you cannot take the pawn because of rook takes c4. Then I mean, if you go with a check here, it's met by another check. So you cannot take the pawn. But the thing is that if you don't take the pawn, I mean, let's give another check. The thing is that either your rook comes to protect this rook, goes on e2, and then I make a queen and checkmate next move. Either you go to commit yourself to the pawn and then take this rook, and this is also a checkmate coming really soon. So great defense by Jakovenko, and Dubov really lost the control of the game, and he must kick himself for this loss, because he could have beaten the top seed. And well, like Jakovenko is just a great fighter, and he showed again his capacity to defend for long and to turn around the game against the talented youngster. So that was the feature game of the day. Already 25 minutes to the video. Let's go to watch a bit of Svidler Lysyj, but I'm not going to go so far in explanation in the next game. Just Svidler is people's favorite because of his video, and just would like to show a beautiful conception he had. So we're in the mid game, 18 moves were played. And here Svidler is going to play a very interesting plan, replacing his queen to a1. So again, as in the last game, the queen is going to the corner and is coming then to a3 to put pressure on c5 and a7, which are the two weaknesses of the black side. If black would go bishop takes c3 here, he played the move a6 instead. But if he goes bishop c3, pawn c3, one might think that this pawn structure is weird because you have double pawns, but here in fact those pawns are controlling a lot of important squares, and the double pawns next to an open file is never too bad, especially when the play is here. a6, queen a3, queen d6, and rook a1. Just inputted some moves. Just to show you that white is better, because it's really hard to defend this a6 pawn, and those pawns in fact, as I just said, are controlling important squares, so it's not such a big deal to have double pawns here. It might even be good in some prospects. So queen a1, black goes a6, might protect the pawn with the rook at some point, might be easier. White plays a winning move, h3. It doesn't make a lot of sense, in fact, when you watch variation, but it's a prophylactic move. So now when the rook lands on e1, white can go, if this rook lands on e1 in variation, white can go king h2. So that's the difference. Also, nothing is happening now. It's white making the game, so it's just prophylactic move. Rook c8, queen a3. Anyway, white is going to... play its plan. So now bishop f6, knight f6. It's time now to thread the bishop and go rook a1. So anyway, white managed to add a pressure on a6. Black goes c4, trying to find some corner play. You cannot just wait to lose your pawn. Rook b4. And the idea of rook b4 is that now the queen cannot keep control of d4. It goes to d8. And white now can take advantage of the d4 spot. This is a perfect square. The knight can be attacked, and it's now looking at so many squares, and it's really hard to kick away this knight. Also, it's threatening to eat a bishop. So black went bishop d7, as I just showed you. If you go pawn takes d3, which is the main line of the computer, for those who wonder, computer says it's a good move, but I mean, I would just answer a queen d3, and you have two isolated pawns, and of course a human player would never go to such a position, because it seems clear that one way or another white is going to win this game, or at least will suffer for at least 50 moves, I would say, because two isolated pawns used to be too much. Anyway, those computers, they show us that it's possible to defend some weird position. So bishop d7, keeping the pawn. Now pawn takes c4, pawn takes c4, and now he's creating those two isolated pawn. It's a bit tactical, but white is better here. So queen a5, queen e7, trying to keep the pieces on the board. Rook b6, the a6 pawn is surrounded. Rook c5, rook b8 check, king h7, and queen b6. So white really penetrated on the queen side. Black goes rook a c7, and white here is playing an unneeded move. He goes c3, again a human move, just stopping all the counterplay on the queen side, because he thinks he has all the time in the world to take the pawn, but in fact queen a6 was more precise. C3 is not really a threat because we can always play b4, and this move is on a highway, a stairway to heaven, to go to the b8 square, to the promotion square. So he goes c3, and here he was a bit lucky that Lysyj didn't fight this move, bishop c8. I won't get into details, but strangely enough, this way to defend the pawn is good because you cover the b7 square, and it pretty much stops the advance of the white pieces on the queen side. So white still has an advantage, but this setup was really hard to break up. Now on the queen side, also the b pawn is blocked by the c4 pawn now. So bishop c8 was a very precise move. Instead, black goes bishop b5, and in fact it's a bad square because the bishop is always attacked by the knight. I mean, some variation I think we'll see why, and also it gives a chance for white to trade some pieces. So now we are trading pieces, and we can get this bishop to attack the pawn. And the thing is that here, after rook c7, bishop takes a6, and rook a7, which I thought was working because you pin the bishop, and the bishop can't move away. The knight is just taking it, and your pin disappears immediately. I mean, it exists, but I mean, it's pointless now. So that's another reason why this bishop is misplaced on c5. So he doesn't have time to do that. He goes bishop d7, searching for counterplay on the king side, but it's never gonna work. Bishop takes a6, bishop h3, rook a4. So now we are going for the second isolated pawn, impossible to protect. Rook e5, bishop c4. We might think for rook e1 that the king is in danger. King h2, bishop f1. So he might try to play some knight f4. But now white is playing a good defensive move. It's knight to f3. And the thing is that after knight g4, king g1, the bishop is attacked and the rook is attacked. So you get to move your bishop away, giving a check. It's almost checkmate, but white has knight takes e1 to save the day. So it's a beautiful tactic with all the black pieces watching at the squares around the king, but you have no time to proceed the checkmate. One way or another, you just lose material. So an elegant way to defend, knight f3. So black goes rook c1, white goes bishop f7. So now another elegant way to protect the king is that the g4 square is not available. Rook c2 and knight e5. Black resigned because next is coming bishop g6 check and rook a8 checkmate. You're already 2 pawns down, and you now just have to defend, and it's game over. So black resigned, and Peter Svidler won this game against Lysyj. Pretty cool game. So let's go to the tables standing. So Vityugov, which won the game today against Hryshmatulin. Another hard end game for Hryshmatulin after his loss in the first one against Koryakin. He was again tortured in the endgame. And so Vityugov coming back to the lead, sharing it with Artemiev and Tomaszewski, to the 3 first players. So other games, Hyrule in Koryakin was really deceiving. Koryakin making another quick draw, following a game he played against Royce a few years ago. I mean, was really deceived by his style. He's always he's not a big fighter. So Motilev, Tomaszewski draw. Artemiev, Bukavshin was a good fight with those 2 players. It was logical it happens. I mean, they both love to play interesting chess, so they made a draw. And so the other 2 games we saw together. tomorrow is the rest day. So I'm coming back after tomorrow with some more action. I would like to finish to say that Peter Svidler is back on the first page, and we should not rule him out for a win in this tournament, because I mean, as I said, he's a multiple Russian chess champion, and those type of player always can make a comeback. He's now just a point away from the first place, so a couple of wins, and he's already sharing the first place. So see you after tomorrow for the round 7. Have a nice Friday night. Goodbye.